Hello, welcome to HITC Sport, and yes, the skits are back this month. That's why the Syrian bunker is gone, and I've got this for now. I don't like it. So yeah, I'm filming this week, and yes, I'm also gonna be a man of my word, and yeah, I'm gonna do my forfeits, like running naked through town and devouring a bowl of cheese. But right now, lads, I don't have time today. I've literally just played a Sunday League game in the midst of Storm Kira. I was lucky not to be blown into next week. Why would you christen this Storm Kira? I knew a Kira once, so apparently I guess this means that there's going to be high force gale winds with a mixture of high-pitched feminist rants. Anyway, let's crack on with the video. Let's go through every year, dating back to 2003, and have a look at the biggest managerial meltdowns in each successive year. Right, let's go. 2003, Sir Alex Ferguson. There's a common myth out there that Sir Alex Ferguson, the most decorated manager in world football, was never prone to meltdowns. Lads, that is utter pig silage and you know it. Fergie was a brilliant manager, yes, but oh good lord did he have his moments. Like in April 2003, deciding to come in from a defeat against Arsenal and kicking a boot into the face of David Beckham. Now listen, alright, as a manager, you might not have agreed with Beckham's attention seeking in the media, the fact he'd probably have sold his wife's kidney to get on the front cover of Hello magazine, but if you're trying to quell the media attention, then choosing to kick a boot into the face of the most famous man on the planet, how is it going to look when the poster boy for magazines and dentist rooms across the country suddenly leaves the ground sporting a gash bigger than Kerry Katona's private parts? It also drove a wedge between manager and player, ending in Beckham walking out the door to Real Madrid in the summer. Fergie, you played that all wrong. 2004, Harry Redknapp. This was the epitome of meltdown. We all know Harry Redknapp is prone to rash decisions, but Christ above. In December 2004, he walks out on Portsmouth after a disagreement with the owner. Fair enough. But to then take up a job at not only bitter relegation rivals, but South Coast rivals as well. Southampton. It's like breaking up with your wife to shack up with her twin sister just 3 weeks later. Did he not realise how disrespectful this was? Yeah, okay, have a disagreement with the owner, but don't take a dump all over the fans who paid your wages. If it was just because you didn't want to move house, it's such a lazy decision. Also, the Poppy fans knew where you lived, and they hate you now. I wouldn't be surprised if you had cow pats being hurled at your kitchen window on a daily basis. 2005, Stuart Pearce. It was May 2005, Man City were being held 1-1 against Middlesbrough in an essential playoff battle for the UEFA Cup. City needed to find the winning goal from somewhere. The clock is ticking down to 90, and then Stuart Pearce comes up with the genius decision to chuck David James up front. The goalie. I wouldn't mind. He had a striker on the bench. John Mackin is a man actually paid to score goals. And you neglect him in favour of the man between the sticks? I'm guessing Mackin probably went home from that game and felt like jumping off a cliff. 2006, Alan Pardew. Not for the first time Alan Pardew's going to get himself on this list. I remember back in late 2006, when a late Marlon Harewood winner for West Ham against Arsenal, Pardew, no stranger to a weird celebration, angrily fist pumps right at Arsene Wenger. Understandably, the Frenchman wasn't angry and pushed him. Oh, but Pardew's not done there. No, he then shouts back at him. Considering this is the same man who once called Manuel Pellegrini a old cunt, despite only being 7 years older than Pardew himself, this is a man who once pushed a linesman, headbutted an opposition player. I have to say that Pardew is an absolute moron. 2007, Neil Warnock. The biggest meltdown of 2007 was clearly Britney Spears wobbling through a VMA performance like a drugged up lava lamp. But no, footballing terms, step forward Neil Warnock. I mean, who else? No, I'm not going to talk about his end of season moaning about Sheffield United getting relegated, because to be fair, he was justified. Carlos Tevez should have been nowhere near that pitch. But no, January 2007, during a game with Reading, both Warnock and Royals assistant Wally Downs were banished from the touchline for essentially trying to have a scrap with each other right there on the pitch. I was actually at a Wimbledon game earlier this season and actually saw Wally Downs up close live in the flesh. He looks as though he's eating his family with a f***ing spoon. 2008, Phil Brown. There's a few candidates for 2008, like Paul Jewell, already seeing his managerial career go up in flames with weekly 5-0 defeats at Derby County. The last thing he needed was to be embroiled in a sex tape scandal. No, sorry, the last thing anyone needed was for Paul Jewell to be involved in a sex tape scandal. The very thought of that alone is almost enough to make you want to cough up your spleen. Joe Kinnear also togged out in his first Newcastle press conference by swearing at everyone in sight. Great way to endear yourself to the local press, but no, biggest meltdown by far. Phil Brown at the Etihad in December 2008. This was a clear example of a man letting fame and praise go straight to his head. After serving as an assistant boy for Big Sam Allardyce for much of his career, this was finally his moment to shine. He'd somehow hauled the little Hull City into the Premier League. He was now tipping himself for the England job. So Hull City find themselves 4-0 down against Man City at half-time on St. Stephen's Day, not Boxing Day. I mean, to be fair, this was no great crime. That City team were consisting of future Premier League champions and Robinho. Hull were lining out with Paul McShane and a fat Dean Windass. You think, considering they were 6th in the league, Brown might have, caught his players a bit of slack. But no, instead he sits these grown men professional footballers down on the pitch in front of the watching world and scolds them like schoolboys. If you ever needed to pinpoint a moment just where a group of players lost respect for their manager, it's this. They won one of the next 20 games, stayed up due to a miracle, and he was sacked a year later. Brown... oh god, no. This was an example of a promising young manager letting his ego destroy his career. 2009 Rafa Benitez. Liverpool fans won't like to remember this, but back in January 2009, they were going head to head in a title race with Manchester United. Then Rafa Benitez decides to verbally unload in a press conference an essential rant at refereeing decisions supposedly favouring their rivals, where he mentioned the word fact about 57,000 times. In the 90s, it was Kevin Keegan yelling into a headset. In 2009, it was Rafa producing verbal diarrhea all over the press conference table. This was a perfect example of Sir Alex Ferguson single-handedly climbing into the heads of his rivals and living there rent-free. 2010 Ian Holloway. Ian Holloway was always good for a meltdown, but you have to feel sorry for me, you really do. The Blackpool team of 10-11 were fresh, exciting, took the game to the opponents despite boasting the tiniest wage in the division. They were brave, and that team will always have my ultimate respect. Anyway, after fielding a weakened team against Aston Villa in November 2010, a game they only lost by 3-2, he was then threatened with a fine from the FA. Judging by his reaction, you'd swear they'd offer to impregnate his missus. Watch the press conference, lads. I've never seen a manager explode with such venom. The lad was personally insulted that anyone would ever try and dictate what team he picks. To be fair, he had a point. I mean, yes, Brett Ormerod was almost as old as time itself. And yes, Marlon Harewood looked at least 83% marshmallow. But he's a manager. Let him pick his own players. If he wants to chuck Richard Kingston and go, let him. 2011 Kenny Dalglish. The fact that Kenny Dalglish was prepared to chuck £35 million. What was that? 3/4 of the club record fee they received for Fernando Torres just 6 hours earlier? On Andy Carroll, just 2 weeks into the job. Oh good lord, I haven't seen such financial recklessness since True Geordie bought the Bentley. 2012 Roberto Mancini. Roberto Mancini was always prone to a meltdown at Man City. That man wore his heart on his sleeves and sometimes it was ugly. Let's go back to November 2012. Man City were exiting Europe at the group stage after City saw a late Sergio Aguero goal disallowed against Ajax before being denied a penalty in injury time. So Mancini, knowing that if he got in the face of the ref, he'd get in trouble, he instead decides to square up to the cameraman. Who squares up to a cameraman? 2013 Rafa Benitez. If in doubt, always choose Paulo Di Canio, but no, instead I'm not. How about Rafa Benitez? Again. To be fair though, who can blame him for this one? Ever since accepting the job at Chelsea in late 2012, he was booed by his own support. They were making banners to get rid of him. And then he finally lashes out at his own fans. In March 2013, halfway through his reign as interim boss, he comes out and says this.
This group of fans are not doing any favours to the team while they are wasting time singing and preparing banners. They have to concentrate on supporting the team. Every game they continue singing and preparing banners, they are wasting time. They have to take responsibility. They need to support the team.
Look, I'm with Rafa on this, alright? The Chelsea fans were absolutely disgraceful in their treatment of him. Yeah, okay, he used to manage Liverpool, so what? For Christ's sake, those fans didn't deserve the Europa League trophy, he won them. But Rafa trying to reason with these fans and trying to get them on side by lecturing them on how to behave, it was never gonna work. 2014 Alan Pardew. Back in March 2014, this man, on the touchline for Newcastle against Hull, and with his side 3-0 up at the time, gets involved in a touchline scuffle with David Myler and tries to headbutt him. Headbutting an opposition player. You were winning the game by 3 goals. 2015 Jose Mourinho. Here's the moment which caused Jose Mourinho's career to unravel. If this hadn't happened on the opening day of the 15-16 season, then I firmly believe Mourinho would still be at Chelsea. And you know what? Probably still challenging for league titles. But no, this was the epitome of self-sabotage. Things were going great for Jose. Chelsea were champions of England. And then, in an opening 2-2 home draw with Swansea on the opening day of the season, he decides to scream bloody murder at Eva Carneiro, the Chelsea assistant, for daring to do her job and tending to an injured Eden Hazard. It's well established Carneiro was popular with the players. Look at Essien grinding on her like it's 2 AM at the local pub, so screaming at her like she's a troublesome dog. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. 2016 Steve McClaren. No, there was no real isolated moment involving Steve McClaren back in 2016, but just his general existence in the Premier League is enough for this one. The sheer fact that he managed to essentially relegate the likes of Moussa Sissoko, Gini Wijnaldum, Andros Townsend, and Alexander Mitrovic. How, with that group of players, it should have been easier to keep them up. 2017 David Moyes. You're bottom of the league with Sunderland, having failed at your previous 2 clubs. You've gone from respected Everton boss to walking meme. The last thing you need is any more bad press. For Christ's sake, over the course of 4 years, David Moyes' career had been dragged through the mud. So why in April 2017 did he threaten to slap BBC reporter Vicky Sparks I don't care if it was in jest. If your stock is that low, if you're under pressure for your job, don't go in front of the media and start joking about beating up women. This is very basic stuff. 2018 Antonio Conte. Remember that war of words between Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte back at the start of 2018, which evolved Jose bringing up the match fixing before the Italian called him a little man. Listen, Conte, you were already being involved in a training ground spat with Diego Costa. You didn't need to be getting involved in sideline spats with Mourinho. If he thought his fiery words might instill a bit of passion in his players, no. They went to ship 7 in 2 games against Bournemouth and Watford before losing 3 out of the next 5 games. Terrible. 2019 Odegaard or Solskjaer. Just everything since the PSG game. And I do mean everything. Anyway, that's the end of it, lads. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think these are justified? Do you think these weren't managerial meltdowns? Let me know what ones you think are. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give a like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll talk to you in a while.